everybody to the Wednesday, June 5th meeting of the Ann Arbor Downtown Development Authority. We are going to begin with the DDA informational meeting. Ms. Thompson.
Thank you. So welcome everybody to our informational meeting. As required by statute, we are to have 2 informational meetings annually, and we do so in December and June. So this is basically a 6-month update from our last informational meeting. So we will be covering our parking system, our TIF system, and then some general DDA information. And I know we show this slide a lot, but we always feel like it bears repeating. The DDA does operate 2 separate systems. We run the parking system for the city of Ann Arbor, and separately we run a tax increment finance system, better known as TIF, and through TIF is how we make our infrastructure investments in our downtown. So we will start with parking. This past weekend, June 1st, we implemented our rate increases, which we have been talking about now for about a year. We also made an operational change within our system this Sunday, June 2nd. Gate arms will now be down at all of our facilities on Sundays. Parking will remain free, however, patrons will need to pull a ticket to enter, insert a ticket to leave. And this is parking industry best practice. It allows for tighter revenue controls, and it also allows us to track utilization. This last week, in collaboration with Supportive Connections, we had Narcan dispensers installed in 4 of our facilities. So Forest, 4th and William, Maynard, and Ashley now all have these purple dispensers, which will be serviced in terms of inventory by Supportive Connections, not our parking staff.
Could you say those again, the spots where they're at?
Forest, the 4th and William structure, Ian Ashley, and Maynard. Did I get that right, Gio? Yeah. So we were happy to collaborate with them on this. Rooftop fencing, as you all know, we will be replacing all of our rooftop fencing this year. Our engineers also determined that in some locations we will be able to add a curved element to the top of the fence. Something similar to what I'm showing. That was just a photo I grabbed off the internet. But where possible, we will have a curved element on our fencing.
Do we know those locations? Or rather the ones where it's impossible?
Do we know? We will provide, how about we will come back and provide more information on that. I don't know off the top of my head. And then finally on the parking side, we just completed phase 1 of an analysis of all of our on-street accessible parking. Recently, there were some new guidelines put out for on-street accessible parking, and these guidelines are based on looking at block perimeters, and that is not how we typically look at our blocks. We're usually looking at block faces. So we did an analysis of all of our block perimeters, and we determined that we need to add about 50 spaces on street, ADA spaces. So the next phase of that project, which is happening now, is determining the very best locations for those spots. Our downtown streets are challenging when it comes to truly accessible spaces. You've got the slope of the street. You have things like trees and street lights and signage, areas that are grassy, bike hoops, patios. There are a lot of challenges, but we are working on that to do our best. And now we'll switch gears to the TIF system. So we are underway with creating a new development plan. We are really in a planning phase right now due to the major planning efforts that are happening in our downtown. 2 of those efforts that will be informing our plan are the city's comprehensive plan and the DDA circulation study. And as you all know, in March we held our first round of public engagement for both of those plans, and we also included some information on our new development plan. We were very pleased with the participation at these work sessions. We had over 350 people, over 700 comments, and we conducted 27 small group stakeholder meetings. The next round of engagement, which I'm assuming will be similar to this type of setting, where we have multiple days of workshops, we anticipate in September. So more to come on that public engagement. We are also continuing our data collection efforts. We have subscribed to 2 data services, Replica and Placer AI, and this data that we are collecting is helping us have a better understanding of our visitor trends downtown, also helping us measure project outcomes, and we are also working on updating and creating a new State of the Downtown report. As you all know, we installed bike counters along our bikeway streets, and about 6 weeks ago, the public-facing webpage went live, so now you can go on a webpage and get real-time counts on how many people are actually using those facilities. So this actually, information I have here is dated. If you looked today, you will see that close to 90,000 people have used our bike facilities since the beginning of the year. We are also underway with our annual repairs. The DDA takes on over $500,000 of maintenance work downtown on an annual basis. We could actually do a whole presentation just on repairs, but just to give you an idea of the types of things that we take on. We do a lot of sidewalk and paver repair, and that picture up in the top left-hand corner shows most of our work is done in the amenity zone of the sidewalk, so that outer area. However, we have also been, over the last few years, and we're continuing this year, to replace any brick on our downtown sidewalks that's in the walking area. You know, that brick is really hard to maintain. There are always trip hazards. It's super slippery when wet. We're getting all of that out of that walking area. We also do a lot of tree pit work, cleaning out tree pits, expanding them when tree roots are growing, so that we can ensure that our trees thrive. We replace those tree grades. We at times have to get expanded tree grades, so that's some of the kind of behind the scenes of what we do with our repairs. And this year we're also taking on an initiative. We are doing a complete evaluation of our wayfinding system. We also have a bike parking assessment underway. So we are looking at all of the bike parking we have downtown, exploring opportunities to add more based on current usage and what we forecast to be future trends. And then also this weekend, the public restroom pilot launched. I think most of you are familiar with the Throne. The DDA is funding 2 units. One of those units is on East Washington Street. The other unit was going to be split between 2 locations. For the first 6 months, we intended to have a location on 4th Ave and beginning in December on Maynard Street. The city ended up installing thrones at Farmers Market and Liberty Plaza. So based on those locations and the proximity to where we were intending to install the throne, we decided not to install the throne on 4th Ave, and we will reevaluate that Maynard location in the fall based on the usage that we're seeing at Liberty Plaza. And then finally on the TIF side, today this board will be voting on the DDA's first public art and placemaking program, which we are calling Elevate. I know you've heard a lot about this program, but the overall goal of this program is to enhance the downtown experience for all people by bringing joy to more of our public spaces. So should this program get approved today, we look forward to beginning implementation. And now just some general DDA information. Since our last informational meeting in December, a permanent executive director has been hired. We have completed our transition to City IT. This was a big lift for us. We're really happy to now be on City IT and have the tools that we need to do our jobs more efficiently. We have moved all of our board materials to Legistar. Staff have completed 6 site plan reviews and 46 right-of-way permit reviews. Our communications specialist is now, that position is with HR, and we're getting ready to start recruitment on that. We also completed a comprehensive insurance review. Staff hosted a Bike to Work Day station, and of course we hosted the Bicentennial Bike-a-Palooza. And other than thanking our taxing authority partners for their ongoing support and thanking this board for its support, that is all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maura. Right, that leaves us to call to order the DDA board meeting. Ms. Thompson, would you complete the roll call?
Micah Bartelme,
Here.
Elizabeth Berry, Steve Brummer,
Here.
Alex Deek, here. Milton Mahoney,
Here.
Angela Jackson, here. Tyler Kinley,
Here.
Kim Mays, here. Mike Micklon,
Here.
and Thressa Nichols. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next up, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Agenda is approved. Quick point of order here. I've got approval of minutes and consent agenda. I'm gonna move on. Great, thank you. Next up, we have public comment. Is there anyone here for public comment? You will have 3 minutes to address the room. Seeing none, we'll move on to report from city board and commissions.
We do not meet.
No report. Ms. Thompson, would you please provide us with the executive director report?
I do not have a report.
Thank you very much. Do we have any DDA member communications?
I feel like I shouldn't since everybody's passing, so we can go home. There's just one item. I'm excited to mention that for the past probably 3.5 weeks, my office has been in discussions with Good Morning America. They are doing a summer series where they are going to pick a week in July and feature a different city each day. July 3rd, they will be in Ann Arbor. We will actually set up GMA in the intersection of Ashley and Liberty, and they will be doing not only highlighting the bicentennial, but they are doing a focus on small businesses. And so there's a small handful of businesses that they will be interviewing and spotlighting. They'll come here and shoot in advance. And if you want to be on camera and you're supporting small businesses, get up and get out there at 7:15 in the morning on July 3rd. Whole thing will happen in about 90 minutes. But it's exposure that Ann Arbor could not get. And they didn't have to pick us. And one of the things you learn from engaging with the national network, you're gonna do the show their way or you're not gonna be on. It's just that simple. So we're gonna do it their way, and the city is prepared to put a little money into it to make sure it's all like it's supposed to be. But I'm happy to mention that here to this group.
That's great. Thanks for Ann Arbor. Thanks, Will. Any other member communications? Seeing none, we'll move on. Next up, we have the consent agenda. If you will notice, we do have a number of items and resolutions that are all included in your packet. These are all note maintenance items and contracts for general repairs that we do throughout the year, as well as the approval of the April minutes, expenditure approval, etc. So unless anyone has something specific to pull from the consent agenda, we will move towards a vote on the consent agenda.
Somebody needs to move it.
If hearing none.
I'll move approval of the consent agenda.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Consent agenda is approved. Next up, special business and reports. Today, we're gonna have two presentations, one from the Michigan Class Investment Program, and the next from the Bank of Ann Arbor investment presentation. Michigan Class, please step on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jeff Anderson, and I'm here today on behalf of Sarah to just give the board a brief overview of the Michigan Class Local Government Investment Pool. The acronym is LGIP, and the benefits that our local units of government in the state of Michigan can achieve from participating in the pool. So Michigan Class is a local government investment pool created in 1992 by a group of treasurers that got together and wanted to really achieve three things. They wanted to work together to invest their money safely. They wanted to create an investment pool that carried daily liquidity so they could access their funds when they needed it for operations. And then the thought was they could work together to achieve a higher yield than they could by themselves. So really, those are the three principles that Michigan Class was founded on. It was created under the Urban Cooperation Act in 1967, which allows local units of government to come together for a common purpose. Today, the pool has over 800 local units participating and about $4.6 billion in Michigan money. It's a great mix of city, village, township, county, school district, fire authorities, utility authorities, downtown development authorities. Any local unit as recognized by the state of Michigan is eligible to participate. Locally, big presence in the area. Washtenaw County Treasurer, longtime participant in the pool. Actually, I'm going to back up a step and let you know the pool is governed by a group of 13 participants that are elected on a 4-year rotating basis. The Washtenaw County Treasurer, Catherine McClary, is a board member on the Michigan Class Board and has been for several years. City of Ann Arbor, longtime participant in the pool, and literally, I think I counted, we had 19 or 20 local units in Washtenaw County currently using the pool. So, getting back to the three principles, number one is safety. Everything we do, safety is the number one concern to make sure that those dollars are as safe as possible. Like I mentioned today, there's approaching $5 billion in the pool. Since inception, no local unit has lost 1 cent in the Michigan Class Local Government Investment Pool. So it is governed by Public Act 20, which is our investment guidelines in the state of Michigan for local units. And the pool is AAA rated by Standard & Poor's. It's reaffirmed on a regular basis. We also get an annual independent audit as an investment pool, and it reaffirms our compliance with Public Act 20 as long as our rating with Standard & Poor's. So while no investment can be said is foolproof or absolutely no risk, we feel it's a great option to diversify your money. How we create the safety is a dollar comes in the pool, that dollar is automatically diversified 400 or 500 different ways, and you own little tiny pieces of each of those investments. Those investments, again, are governed by Public Act 20. They consist of U.S. Treasuries, agencies, top-tier commercial paper, and a little bit of bank product. Of note, there is absolutely zero bank risk in the pool, so any dollar that is in the pool in a financial institution is backed 100% by U.S. Treasury. So no bank risk in the pool. We see that come up often these days with some bank failures over the last few years, Silicon Valley being number one. So that's safety. Number two, I touched on earlier, is the pool carries the daily liquidity. So if you had $100,000 in the pool, or $100 million, and you needed it tomorrow for operations or for another investment or a multitude of anyways, it's a simple transfer to your linked bank account, and that money is available to write a check the next day. So daily liquidity. The third thing is yield. Because we're as large as we are, we're able to offer what we think is a very competitive yield. Today, the rate is 5.4%. We pay that interest on a nightly basis. So if you had a balance today, you'd get an interest payment overnight. And then tomorrow night, you'd earn interest on that interest. So you get that compounding effect of your interest dollars at work. From an administrative standpoint, we think we have state-of-the-art programs, extremely secure and sophisticated web portal, very simple to move money back and forth. We offer the opportunity to track buckets of money separately, so if the DDA had a special project that we're saving for, we could set up a sub-account and track the interest on that bucket separately. With that, how to join, it's a resolution by the governing body to participate. It's a review of an investment policy, which I've seen a draft of your policy I think you're going to talk about today, which would be in compliance, and then it's registration paperwork to be completed. There is no direct cost to our local units to participate. So there's no minimum balances, there's no monthly fees, there's no transaction fees. With that, I'll turn it over to anyone with questions.
Are there any other fees?
So a natural question is, how do you manage $4.6 billion for free, right? The elected board of 13, which Catherine McCleary is on, as I mentioned, has signed an agreement with a company called Public Trust Advisors to manage the pool for us, okay? They manage 13 pools throughout the country. That's all they do. They manage about $80 billion in local government money. They have signed an agreement to charge an administrative fee of, it works out to be at this current point about 0.12% or 12 basis points. You'll actually never see that. So today we've posted a yield on our website of 5.4%. That's what our locals will get paid tonight. That basket of investments actually earned 5.52. So the 0.12 comes off the top. I'll take you back a few years when I was lucky enough to be on the Michigan Class Board, as Mrs. McCleary is. In my first board meeting, I asked a similar question. I understand it's 12.5 basis points as a fee. Is that competitive? How does that, give me some context on that fee. And the answer was a good one. There is another pool in the state, predominantly for school districts in the state of Michigan, and the management fee for that pool is 0.42. So it's more than 3 times the Michigan Class management fee. And the end of the result is a higher yield to our participants. So if you are a participant in the pool, you are an owner of the pool. So this is not a for-profit entity. It's simply a group of local governments created under the Urban Cooperation Act to work together to achieve these 3 goals.
Just one question. The Board of 13, do they have just regular discussions just on the idea of the cybersecurity aspect and keeping these funds protected? Is that more on your group that manages the 13 other buckets?
Great question. Quarterly, our board gets together, and at each of those meetings, cybersecurity is a topic. So working with Public Trust, who manages these pools, like I mentioned, in 13 states, extremely robust IT and cybersecurity group. Almost to the point of, as someone that works with our participants every day, it walks the line of burdensome. But I think every day that goes by, we all understand how important it is now. Kind of a cool thing with Michigan Class is when you create your account, we link your Michigan Class account to a bank account of yours, okay? So that's the only place money can go. So let's say someone were to hack a user's username and password. The only thing they could really do would move money from their Michigan Class account to their bank account. So there's no ability to set up their own independent bank account and transfer money to the Cayman Islands. As another security feature, from time to time, local units change banks, add banks. So there is a form that is submitted to add a bank account. dual authorization, and then we will actually call the stated number for the organization and talk to both of those individuals to verify that bank information. So, multi-factor authentication, all that good stuff. So you log in, a text comes to your phone, and you punch that in. So, great question, and we spend lots of time and money, unfortunately, on that these days.
Thank you.
Any additional questions from the board for Mr. Anderson?
Just one.
Yes.
Is there anywhere we can go to look at performance over time?
Absolutely. If you go to michiganclass.org, there's a ribbon toward the top third of the page, and there's a yields tab, and you can go back and punch in as far as you want to go back. We've seen since the Fed started to raise rates, going on 2 years ago now, we've seen rates substantially rise, and we've really hovered around 5.4 for the last 6 or 7 months.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it.
Next, we have David Reaver, Portfolio Manager for Bank of Ann Arbor, to present a report on the DDA's investment portfolio.
Y'all wouldn't mind tilting your head? I apologize. If you go up to view and rotate. Thank you. Sorry about that. Good afternoon. I'm David Reaver. This is my colleague Rachel Estelle, and we are from the Bank of Ann Arbor, and we are your investment team and team at the Bank of Ann Arbor. We had a long commute. We got here in plenty of time. The traffic on the sidewalks was not too bad, so that was all good. I know you have a full agenda, so I'd like to take about 10 minutes to kind of go through, talk just briefly about the market, the Fed, and the investment portfolio and compliance. So certainly feel free to ask questions or save them until the end if you like. For people who like lots of data, you can read all of these comments at your leisure. A couple things I'd like to focus on, though, are the U.S. economy. So I think everyone would agree that they've been surprised at how resilient the economy was in 2023 and henceforth how the market did. However, one of the big themes is we are starting to see a slowdown. So the U.S. economy grew 1.6 in the first quarter. That's been revised downward. For Q2, we are expecting GDP of roughly 1.8%, down from 2.7, so a significant decline. We've had some recent data that has come out, the JOLTS report, which is job opening, that has come in weaker. So we're starting to see some of the elements of a slowdown. Who knows about recession? We've been talking about recession for over 2 years. This is the most anticipated recession ever. All eyes have been on the Fed for a little over a year. As Jeff mentioned, the Fed has been raising rates. They paused, and at the end of 2023, the thought was that the Fed would be fairly aggressive in starting to reduce rates. It hasn't happened. However, given the recent weakness in some of the data, Fed futures market is now pricing in about a 74% chance of a rate cut in September. Our view, we think things are slowing down. Ultimately, with the equity markets, which we're not invested in here, it depends on earnings. Earnings are still robust. We're expecting about a little over 11% growth for the market's expecting a little over 11% for this year, and into next year about 14%. Those are strong numbers. However, we we'll continue to watch and monitor and see if those are revised downwards. Okay, with all of that, we can turn to the next page. These are yield estimates. This was as of a point in time yesterday morning. We showed treasuries, agencies, CDs, munis, and then corporates are on a spread basis to treasuries. As Jeff mentioned, again, the Fed has been raising rates. We have not seen rates like this in the market in a while. And so there have been opportunities with the fund, and a competitive return is the ultimate result. Return to the next page. I would be remiss being a fixed income guy if I did not show a yield curve in here, yield curve chart. What this shows are yields on U.S. Treasuries at certain points in time. So the one to pay attention to is the dark blue one on top. That's the current yield curve, and you can see that rates are higher in the shorter term than they are in the longer term, meaning that the curve is inverted. Usually this is an indicator of a slowdown or recession, but the curve has been inverted for the longest time ever without a recession. So, but we continue to watch it. Again, for the short-term nature of this portfolio, you're in a very good spot. Turn to the next page, we can talk about performance. A couple things I will point out. So the yellow bar, everything in yellow, is the invested capital. If you look at 2019, it looks like the fund increased significantly. However, there were several funds at that point, and they were just combined into one account. And so historically, we have the performance of the original account. And then the green line shows the value of the fund or your portfolio over time, and you can see that small, slight gap. If you had equities in your portfolio, you would see a nice, large gap over time from your invested capital. So the next page has a couple. So this, in conjunction with the following page, shows some of the holdings in your portfolio. I like this chart because it shows it breaks it out by maturity. So 2024, you have about $4 million coming due. The rest of this year, it shows 25, 26, 27. The second thing it shows is on the bottom under YTM, that's yield to maturity. So holding all of these positions until maturity would yield about a 4.98. And some of that has been impacted by longer term holdings in the portfolio when interest rates were near zero. So, and the third thing is, I'm sorry for that. The third thing is the duration to maturity, which is 1.54 years. So the portfolio is very, very short in nature. That kind of matches the needs of it. Next page shows those holdings. The nice thing about this portfolio is we can customize it to your cash flow needs. We can immunize the liability stream if we need to, very, very specifically. I will tell you that the portfolio today is in compliance with all of the essential elements, with the exception, if you look up there, there are 2 CDs that were purchased several years ago. So they are over the $250,000 threshold, but they are the Sallie Mae Bank and Goldman Sachs Bank. And so going forward, we will simply be in full compliance. My recommendation is, I've spoken to Sarah about this, that we continue to hold it. We've got, they mature in August and in September. We'll get the full $500,000, $650,000 questions, thoughts? Did I keep it under 10 minutes? Did I keep it close? Relatively? So I asked Sarah, I said, I can do this presentation in 10 minutes or I can do it in 45. So in a lot more detail, don't need to do that, but certainly if you have questions, like to talk about any other investment topic, certainly would love to do that. Love talking about markets,
So
most of the time.
In our gain loss column over here, we're showing a loss of $563,711.60. Is that unrealized just from?
That's all unrealized, and that's the consequence of having a portfolio, having investments in a zero rate environment several years back. So when interest rates go up, the value of the portfolio goes down. But if you hold all of those to maturity, you will have the losses. And at some point, those losses will go away as we continue to reinvest. So.
But we
with
would
that-
only realize those losses if we sold those assets short of maturity.
Yes. So, for example, if we went back just one page.
So we've made some 5-year, 4-year type things that were at zero rate at that time.
Well, they weren't, I say zero.
Right,
but,
I get
so
it. So nominal.
nominal, yes, 1 3/8,
Yeah.
5-year. So you have 1 year.
And we bought those, and if we sold them now, we'd be taking a loss on them. But if we hold them to maturity,
Right.
then
The loss, yes, so as the investment moves toward maturity, it amortizes towards the par value.
Can we go back to that last slide again? So we've got our principal cash and income cash there under the total portfolio. Again, that's unrealized at this point, principal cash loss.
Principal cash loss.
Yeah, negative $171,312.
Yeah,
What's that?
That doesn't make sense.
And income cash would be dividends that have been paid out.
Yes, it would be interest paid out, yes.
Okay. And so that's year to date. Or is that?
This is kind of like a balance sheet, so
Yep.
it's at a point in time.
Point in time, okay.
Right, so if you go, if, you scroll back 2 pages. Yeah, so if we go back to the one with the yellow graph. So this is the performance, so, again, year to date, I probably skipped over this. Year to date, so May through April, this account has returned 4.07% versus a blended benchmark of about 3.22. This is on a total return basis.
Correct. So then our 3-year total return is 0.95%.
Yes.
5-year return is 1.16%.
Right.
So
And
we've
it-
had a good return this last year, but we've got some historical, not quite as good return.
Right, so I would say a good return for those zero interest rate environment, which
Yeah.
was near zero, but there was a bit of a spread. It's just with the Fed raising interest rates, you are earning a lot on your new investments on cash. The older investments are what they are.
Got it. So this year we've had a gain of 436,000.
Yeah, so actually, yes, year to date, and if you, I'll tell you, so let's scroll back. So the portfolio from this point is up another $250,000 from the end of April. So a little over a month. It's about 1%.
So this one's our P&L, the other one's our balance sheet.
It's a great great way of thinking, yes.
Got it. And so those are those negatives on the balance sheet are the unrealized.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes.
Any other questions for
Hope I made that as clear as
Mr. Reaver?
Anything
Thank you
else?
very much.
Thank
Mr.
you for
Reaver.
your time.
Appreciate
Have
it.
a wonderful day.
Thank you, Micah.
On to new business. We have 3 resolutions for consideration today. The first resolution is to adopt a new investment policy. Before we get to the resolution, Sarah is going to provide us with an overview of the policy and what we're discussing. Sarah?
Good afternoon. Go, you can go down. Yep. So the investment policy that was in your packet is about 10 pages long. We aren't gonna go over every detail of that policy. It's quite, as you may have noted if you read through that, quite dense, it's quite technical. But I did want to point out to you some of the kind of highlights and basic framework behind the policy. Much of it is based directly on state statute. PA 20 of 1943 specifically, which both of the folks that just spoke to you mentioned that they follow all of the provisions of PA 20. It's our Bible for investment of public money. In that public act, some of the things that are required, we directly respond to in that policy, and they're stated as must. You must have these components, including a statement of purpose, scope, objectives of the policy, notations about safety, diversification, liquidity, all of those items that are noted in these little snippets of the statute are included in sections of the policy that are noted in the blue arrows. So you can directly tie those out. And if you look at city policy, you'll see the wording is almost identical. If you look at the government finance officers template that they put out, across the country, everybody's using the same language. Even though the statutes are state by state, the language is almost identical everywhere that public funds are invested. So our policy that you're considering today is more in keeping with the statutory requirements than the policy that we have had for the last 22 years is. It had the main framework in place, but it didn't take into account ethics, some of the other components that have been added, and some of the restrictions that the city has employed that being a component unit isn't fitting for us to employ. So let's scroll down, Kelly. So again, looking at city policy, we considered, and that was referenced heavily in the new policy as well, we considered that we were a component unit. If the DDA goes away at some point, all of the dollars that we hold would go to the city. And so keeping within any restrictions that the city has in their policy seems just like good common sense, so that there's nothing that we have that the city wouldn't be allowable under city policy. We've also heavily reviewed the restrictions and enhancements that the city added above and beyond what the PA 20 requires. And those restrictions were entirely followed in our policy, with one exception. the Michigan class line item, joint interlocal investment ventures, we bumped up the maximum there because it's a liquid in and out type of situation, so we can shift money as we need to and back without restriction. The other thing that we did in looking at this policy is ask the city treasurer to review it. He had some great recommendations, one of which is that we submit the policy to the APT USNC, which is the US and Canada's treasury organization, and they will do a certification process on the policy. So that's something that's planned. After it's approved, we'll submit it and see if we can get certification. Next. So going forward, the accreditation, we'll also be developing a more comprehensive procedure manual, and as is required by the policy, and maintaining, of course, those investments in line with policy. And as David said, we have the 2 CDs that are a bit over the dollar framework, and in August, those will come off, and we'll invest underneath that maximum limitation. We'll also be working with David to just kind of go through the details in the policy and make sure any of our protocols are adjusted to follow that. One of those is asking him for a list of the broker-dealers, something that we haven't done before. It wasn't in our previous policy, and that's something that we'll be looking at an annual basis. And maintaining professional memberships and training. That was one of the other things that Mike suggested adding to the policy, which I thought was a great idea. I have maintained professional organization memberships and training, but it's nice to have it formalized, and the board approved that cost and that dedication because it's so important to keep up with the changing best practices and thoughts in the industry. Questions?
Yeah, I missed what you said, you were going to get listed out with establishing protocols.
Yeah, just meeting with David from Bank of Ann Arbor and talking through with him how we approach our cash flow analysis, that kind of thing, and also going through the policy in detail. He's reviewed it, and we've had some conversations leading up to today, but I want to make sure that we're going through from a procedure standpoint and making sure that we're scheduling things ahead, and just getting that in line, as annual meetings, quarterly meetings as needed. He's also going to start providing a more detailed quarterly report, which will include in the board's packet on a quarterly basis. That's something new as well. So
I failed to ask David, I forgot.
Yeah.
What's our fee basis with Bank of Ann Arbor for management? Do you know offhand?
I do not know that offhand, but I can get you that answer.
That'd be great.
Okay. Yeah.
And how do you anticipate, assuming that the board authorizes, I don't know what we have to do with Michigan class.
Yeah.
If we have to do anything, assuming that we do, how does that change the balance of money we keep with Bank of Ann Arbor?
Yeah.
Money that goes into Michigan class, because there's, we've got 5.46 over here,
Right.
we've got,
Yep.
how are we balancing out where our investments go and what our yield is on those investments and what we load in different
Yep,
institutions?
that decision will be mine as the investment officer. And I'll work with Jeff and with David on those decisions. It'll be, to some degree, it will be earnings related. We also, one of the challenges that we have is all of our TIF money comes in very early in the year when we're kind of around August. And a lot of that isn't spent until the end of the year when we're beginning that new construction season.
Mhm.
So we have that challenge of not having a very long threshold to invest those dollars. We need to keep a lot liquid. Our debt payments come in April and May. And those are substantial, $5 million. So the Michigan class will allow us to kind of have another option between short-term T-bills, that kind of thing, or Michigan class, and we can just kind of look at what's most advantageous and make those decisions. And as Jeff said, it's very, very easy, straightforward to move that money. I've worked with, Michigan Class is new to the DDA, but it's not new to me. I've worked with Michigan Class in my other positions for many years. The township that I was treasurer for was the 8th participant in the organization as a member, so we had a long history with Michigan Class. And I'll say too, Jeff is really good about having a front face at all of the professional organizations where I attend. He's well known, he's helpful, and if you have any questions about any kind of investments, he really provides a lot of service. So very excited about being able to shift some money over there from time to time when it's advantageous for the DDA.
Yeah, it's, I mean, from what we've seen today, not a lot of downside.
Yeah.
Yields are at or above treasury.
Yes.
There's liquid, there's not holding periods, chance of.
Just no
so-
downsides. There just really aren't any downsides. It's also going to help us with the new restrictions to make sure that we're keeping a better mix. You know, for diversification purposes, it's really nice that way. It's just painless.
If you could distribute the fees for Bank of Ann Arbor, because I think, you know, also
Yeah.
that 12.5 basis points is incredibly competitive.
Yep, yep.
And so there's, again, another check on
There is something to keep
the
in
class
mind.
box.
Yeah, it's something to keep in mind. Our relationship with the Bank of Ann Arbor is longstanding, and one of the reasons is they take our coin. That's something that I'm not sure if I find another bank in the state that would take coin at this point. And we've looked in the past to see what it would cost to have a truck pull up and take the coin, and it's not as convenient for one thing. PCI has the ability to take the coin over multiple times a day if needed. They have a separate room set up over there where they count it. They've been doing that for a long time. So my sense, even though we have nothing officially that connects those two services, it's that
Right,
if,
so there's,
if the investments go away, the coin will go away.
banking relationships and investment relationships.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Okay, well, I think we're all interested in this.
Okay,
and
awesome.
that.
I'll be sure to send that out. Thank you very much.
Thank you. But one last question, sir.
Yeah.
So this policy isn't anything about balancing those or anything like this. So what we're doing on this resolution is just about the policy about what we're allowed to invest in and how we balance that portfolio. Nothing
Yes.
to do with
It's
this class or Bank of Ann Arbor.
the only thing that it will do is it allows us to invest in class. We didn't have the ability to do that because the list of allowable investments in our policy was more restrictive than what's allowed by the state statute. We've corrected that. We now have only one item in there that we don't allow, which is we've never invested in that, and it's not included in the city's policy either. So we just left that one item out, but everything else is allowable now.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do I have a motion to approve the resolution? Moved. Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. Open the floor for discussion. Any discussion on the adopting the DDA investment policy? Great. Very thorough. Thank you, Sarah. Let's take it to a vote. All in favor of adopting the DDA investment policy, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say nay. Resolution passes. Next up, we have a resolution to adopt the fiscal year 2025 DDA budget. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution? So moved. Thank you, Tad. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you. The DDA board put forward the proposed FY25 budget for City Council's consideration in March. The board approved the budget without change. Council approved the DDA FY25 budget as part of the city's budget on May 20th. The final step in the DDA's budget process is the adoption of the budget by the board. So we've heard a lot about this. Sarah's given us a number of excellent presentations. We're at the final moment. Any other discussion on the budget approval? Great, take that to a vote. All in favor of the resolution to adopt the fiscal year 2025 DDA budget, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The resolution passes. Finally, and very excitingly, I am pleased to move forward the resolution to adopt the DDA's Elevate program to support placemaking in the DDA district. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. As you are all aware, this is a really exciting placemaking public art program. I'll open it up for discussion. Extensively reviewed this in last work session. And we have Amber here to answer any additional questions on the program. Cool. Hearing no discussion, let's bring this to a vote. All in favor of approving the resolution to adopt the DDA's Elevate program to support placemaking in the DDA district, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The resolution passes. Next up, do we have any unfinished business?
We do not.
Excellent. Lastly, we have communications. Following communications are included in the packet. No action is required, but new this month, staff will present a financial summary for Q3 to better inform the board and create space for members to ask questions. Staff will give a brief financial presentation every quarter. Sarah, would you please come to the podium?
So you've received in your packet over the last several quarters a financial summary. This is the same format as that, but in discussions, Maura and I met with Mike and asked for some feedback on that report, whether there was anything that we needed to add about the format. We also discussed whether or not it would be helpful to have that presented rather than just tucked into the packet. And Mike's suggestion was to present this and kind of create some space for the board to discuss. So that's our new format going forward. And we'll start with the TIF system. So the way that I've got this set up, again, is a kind of a dashboard format. It pulls the budget report, the revenues and expenditures at the third quarter, and the assets and liabilities, and kind of looks at the fund balance as well. So this is March 31st, revenues were at 9.3 million versus the budget of 8.5. So we are over budget on the revenue side, which is a good thing. That's related to both investments, it's market values on our investments being up, and also millage rates were a little higher than our projections. We always just go with the last year's millage rates in our budgeting. Millage rates were a little higher, so our revenues came in a little higher. On the expenditure side, we are at 5.8 million versus the budget of 13.2 million, which is about 44% of the budget at the 75% mark, time-wise. That's related, that's based on a lot of things. As you can see in the little budget to actual box there in the center, every category except debt is coming in a bit slow. Capital in particular, and that's for a couple of reasons. One is we move our capital budget forward, any unspent dollars from the previous year. So we have 2023 budget dollars that move forward to 24. This is a planning year. It's been slow on the capital side intentionally. And we've also rescheduled the timing on some of the projects that we were planning intentionally as well. Keep in mind that the DDA as a component unit and most of our projects are partnerships with other, with the city and with the Housing Commission, et cetera. Our timing when those are planned is kind of August for implementation that begins a year later and finishes a year after that. So there's a lot of space between when those capital items are planned and when they're actually spent, those dollars. And it's really a strength of the this organization that we're able to budget more than we spend and allow ourselves that flexibility. We have seen at different times that it's very helpful for the city to be able to move something if we need to in Housing Commission and our other partners. So, while it, that's one of the reasons for that being so low right now at this point. On the asset side, we're at about 15 million versus last year we were at 14.6, so we're up just a little bit, about a 3% increase. Our liabilities are a little down, 2.8 million versus 3 million, and that's just timing on invoices. So that's an 8% decrease. And our budgeted ending fund balance for FY24 is 4 million, about 47% of the budget. Again, leading into some heavy construction years. The projected ending fund balance will be a bit higher than that, well, quite a bit higher than that at 7.6 million. Again, leading into those construction years, and we anticipate that a significant amount of the CIP will roll forward to 25. Questions on the TIF side? Move on to parking. So revenues and parking are at about 78% of our budget, and I believe this budget was an 8% increase over the previous year. So again, still in that kind of sorting out COVID recovery and where we're gonna land. We feel like this is our new normal, but the budget was a little understated, and we do tend to try to keep that conservative for planning purposes. So 16.3 versus the 21 budget. We do anticipate that revenues will be up at year end by about 820,000. So very good thing there. Expenditure side, we're at 14.2 versus 27 for the budget, about 52%, again at the 75% mark timing wise in the fiscal year. So here again, we will be rolling forward capital projects. And if you look at the 6-year overview and kind of where we planned that fund balance at being about 10 million, we'll probably come in closer to 13 at year end. Questions?
So, we don't anticipate spending all of our budgeted capital projects this year just because of the way we're lining up contractors, timing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes. Yes.
So, still doing all that work, but just carrying those forward
Right.
and rolling them over into the next year.
As well as our other projects.
Correct. And on the parking side in particular, we had some deferments that we're going to be catching up on. So
Right.
there's going to be some significant spending coming up in the next couple of years.
Oh.
Yep.
Okay.
So just a couple of notes. So again, change of the way that we're approaching the financial reviews. I'll be talking to you for a little bit every quarter. And the investment reports that will be coming from David from Bank of Ann Arbor will be included in this starting next quarter as well. We'll be able to discuss those. Policy development process. Just a note here that in the talks with Mike, one of the things that we discussed is whether policies should always come to work sessions for discussion or straight to the board, some mix of the two. And we kind of discussed that if the policy was heavily driven by statute and by city policy, that type of thing, we would bring it directly to the board. If the policy is more open-ended, like our fund balance policy will be, where the board has there's more space there for board input, we'll bring it to a work session so that the board has a chance to talk over those details, and then we can work it into the policy before bringing it to the board for consideration. So just so you're aware of our kind of approach as we go forward into some policy work.
Thank you,
Questions?
Sarah. This is super helpful, and Mike, thanks for also offering the solution. I think it's an elegant way to keep everyone updated
Awesome.
and address the finances on a regular basis.
Awesome, thank you so much.
Thanks. Any other questions or comments on the Q3 financial report? Lovely. Next up, we have public comment. Do we have anyone who would like to comment publicly, you will have 3 minutes to address the board. Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn? Do I have a second? Second. Thank you. All in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay.